One time, like this. For those who hop and make your one nigga straight loony after taking one up.
Check it out now. Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a bird.
Dope fiend.
This is SF Mo, your prison lawyer.
This is SF Mo, your prison lawyer. This is SF Mo, your prison lawyer. This is SF Mo, your prison
You're in a motherfucking grill pit.
This is SF Mo, your prison lawyer, and I got a banger for you. But before I get into that, let me give you a little context to this video you're gonna see, because it's a little bit complex. So back in 2020, December 2020, there was an investigation into Laurel Correctional Institution in Florida, FDOC. The AP had wrote an article titled "Investigation Finds Rampant Sexual Assault of Inmates by Staff, Prison Staff," right? So from 2015 to 2019, there was over 161 assault cases investigated, and only 8 resulted in arrests of staff. This is crazy, right? Some of the start situations we have is that women said that the process of reporting it was difficult, right? This is after PREA. This is post PREA. They're saying that coming forward about a sexual assault, they were handcuffed, taken to administrative confinement, which is SEG, and they experienced loss of privileges and property and visitation. This is after PREA. They're doing this, so they're fronting off PREA like it's some type of a revolutionary change and progressive change. Yet, and still, when it comes down to rank and file, they're still doing the same thing as usual. Other issue is just reporting constrictions, right? The timeliness of reporting, because a lot of times with staff, when you're trying to report something to them and tell them about their own, they play games with you. You know, they don't file certain things. They lock you up and put you in SEG. Another finding was that often than not, according to report, the investigations are not thorough. In many cases, the accused perpetrator is not even interviewed. Not even interviewed. In other reports, incidents, the investigation is eventually suspended and then it lingers for years with no outcome. Often the guards keep their jobs regardless of multiple accusations against them. Sexual allegations against them being reprimanded or moved to a no inmate contact list rather than losing their jobs. A lot of this has to do with the union, right? You know, them protecting their jobs. I know, SAF Mo, here you go again. Here you go with, bringing us bad news, but somebody's got to report on it. You know what I'm saying? So, I know you're used to your law and order and your CSIs and all this. At the end of the day, these Brady Bunch conclusions to the conversation, and you're not used to the truth being told to you. But your body, you might want to put your babies to bed, because SF Mo gonna give it to you raw and tell you exactly what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no dragnet of baby. You know what I'm saying? No Brady Bunch issues, endings happening here with us, right? So, with that being said, why do you bring that up, SF Mo? You know what I'm saying? Why did you come to that conclusion or bringing this up? What relevance does it have? Well, unbeknownst to you, like I told you to put the babies to bed, that Minnesota has this same situation. You know what I'm saying? But how could this be possible when we got this great commissioner and this new Negro deputy commissioner? How's it possible that Minnesota has the same problems with sexual abuse? Well, they've been able to utilize the system and put people in front of them so they don't have to hear it, and they have a plausible denial when it comes to this, right? That if you don't tell me about it, or if I don't hear it, I don't have to address it. But this situation is going on in Minnesota right now. A female by the name of Angela Jackson was assaulted not too long ago, and the DOC is trying to sweep it underneath the rug. But you know what I'm telling you? We're not going to let that happen, right? Angela Jackson's case will not be swept up underneath the rug. And we're going to bring old Paul Snell. You're going to make him heel down and listen to us. This is I Got Something to Say. This is SAF Mo, your prison lawyer. And I'm going to give it to you raw. Every time.
who is currently in the Shakopee prison. Angela has made reports on numerous attempts that she was sexually assaulted inside of Shakopee prison. There has been little to no accountability held against the correction officers that sexually assaulted Angela on April 13th of 2022. The reason that they say that they have not held these officers accountable is because they claim they have a lack of evidence. However, there were cameras that were there in the prison that day. So if there is a lack of evidence, we need transparency. We need to see those video footages, and that is what we are demanding. We're demanding honesty. If they are claiming that perhaps Miss Angela is not being honest about this attack on her, then give us the footages that shows and proves your narrative. We have to stand out here time and time again, whether it is law enforcement killing people on the street, or whether it is law enforcement mistreating people inside of the prisons. We have to beg for transparency. We have to beg for honesty when, if these allegations were made, all they had to do was show us the videos, show Angela's family the videos, and then we can all move on. Why do we have to stand outside of the DOC and beg for transparency as they lock the doors? The students can't even get in. There's a school inside of the building. All because we are asking for honesty and transparency. And what happened to Angela Jackson on April 13th of 2022? We will not allow people, our community, families, we will not allow people to mistreat human beings for any reason at all, whether they are in prisons or whether they are on the street. Law enforcement has a duty to protect and to serve and nothing else. So we need people to do the right thing, and it is not about being against law enforcement. It is about people treating people right, people treating people fair. If a woman is in prison, if Miss Angela was in prison, let her serve her sentence and come home. But there is no way that she has to go through sexual violence and sexual assault while she's serving her time and paying her dues to society. So we want honesty, again, we want transparency, and we want people to be held accountable for their behavior. Also, there was an officer that hit the panic button, the partner. They violated, there was not supposed to be two men walking a woman back to solitary confinement that day. That was against policy for two men officers to do that, but they say they were short-staffed. So at that point, Miss Angela is stating that her private areas were touched inappropriately and grabbed. And then the officer that partnered, the officer that did this assault, pressed the panic button. We want want to know why he pressed that panic button, and we want those videos, and that is what we are demanding as a community. Again, my name is Tashira Garraway. I am the founder of Family Supporting Families Against Police Violence. I stand for families that have lost loved ones at the hands of law enforcement here in the state of Minnesota, as I lost my own loved one, Justin Tigan, who was brutally beat to death and thrown inside of a trash dumpster by the St. Paul Police August 19, 2009. So I stand in solidarity, not only with the families in the community, but I stand with the families that have lost loved ones inside of the prisons. I stand with the families of people that are being mistreated inside of the prisons, and we will not stand for it, because no matter what someone did wrong, we as human beings still deserve to treat each other with dignity, respect, and as human beings, no matter what. Thank you. We will now have David with I Walk Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you, Tashira, and thank you for that wonderful overview and all that you do for this community. Just a couple things I want to mention that I think are really important. We have a system that's abuse on abuse. So I don't know if you've heard the term, I'm just learning this phrase, the sexual assault to prison pipeline. But we have learned, and people have brought up, and people have organized around this concept and found that the vast majority of women who are incarcerated in the United States and in Minnesota, a driving force in that incarceration is sexual violence. That is what either spins them out to get to that point, or it's directly involved. And so when we're talking about women who are incarcerated, we are talking about people who have dealt with sexual violence and need healing. They need support. They need to be lifted up. They need to be treated with respect. They need to be treated well, like human beings. And our prisons do exactly the opposite at every step of the way. So, Ms. Angela reports sexual assault. Is she retaliated against? Yes. Is she supported? No. She's currently not been placed in a job much longer than usual, which means she can only get out of her cell for 1 hour a day. The guard who she reported, is he back in the facility? Yes. Did she have to see him every day until someone complained? Yes. How can you feel safe in this type of situation? You can't. What do they do for these women? They do not provide the support that they need. Also, when you're talking about sexual violence, you're talking about trauma and mental health. What do they do with a whole group of women who have been sexually assaulted? They subject them to strip searches on a regular basis. Women in prison and anyone who's been subjected to a strip search will tell you that that is a form of sexual violence. Why would you put someone and a whole population of someone who have suffered sexual violence through regular sexual violence? It is insane, it is inhumane, and what's even worse is that the taxpayers and the community have already got the DOC to buy a body scanning machine to prevent sexual assaults via strip searches in Shakopee Prison. It has been there for over a year, and it has never been used for that purpose. This is institutional sexual abuse. Also, just to speak of mental health, what does a prison do if someone is mentally ill and needs mental health support? Well, they put them in solitary confinement. Does that make someone mentally stronger, mentally more well? No, it does the opposite. What else do they do? If they express that they might be suicidal, they strip them naked and put them in a, quote, wet cell until they decide that they're no longer suicidal. This is regular practice in the men's and women's and for everyone incarcerated in the Minnesota Department of Corrections. This is not how we respond to people who have been traumatized. This is not how we respond to human beings, and this is not what we need for our community. So, I just wanted to let you know there's important facts. I want to shout out to Angela in there. She's a very brave woman. She's speaking out in very hard circumstances. She's going through a lot. She needs our love and support. If you want to sign the action alert and learn more, and you can also write her a letter through that, it is tinyurl.com/justice for Angela. The letter for, again, tinyurl.com, all one word.
information. I don't understand the double standard of investigative work that they do. It doesn't take 2 months to not have anything produced substantive. The victim herself wasn't even interviewed until a week ago. This incident occurred back in April. Keep in mind, people, I understand predatory behavior. Predators do their things in secret. That's the reason why it's so hard to get this information. As the sister stated, if you don't have anything to hide, what's wrong with producing the video? So if there's anything that should be heartfelt and honest about this whole situation, give us the tape. Thank you.
Again, we want to state that this is Shakopee Prison, that this has happened to Angela Jackson. We want to point out that Paul Chanel, we need people to reach out to him because we need these officers at the very least investigated. If they're saying that there is a lack of evidence, then look over the evidence. Look over the videos that were there that day and be transparent because the public knows about it now. So that means that the public deserves honesty. The public deserves to know the truth. And most of all, Miss Angela deserves to feel safe. She deserves to be in that prison, not being afraid and not seeing someone who sexually assaulted her in this prison every day. If this person did do this, they need to be held accountable. Right is right and wrong is wrong. We say this all the time. So again, we need, and there's another woman that's the head of this department as well. Her name is Michelle.
Michelle Smith is the head of facilities.
Michelle Smith is the head of the facilities. So we need people to contact Michelle Smith, the head of the facilities with the DOC, and Paul Chanel with the DOC as well. We need transparency. We need honesty. And if this, how do you plan to build a relationship with the community? How do you plan to build the community's trust when we're asking for the videos? We don't know what happened, but what we do know is that the videos are not being brought forward from that day. What we do know is there's no transparency and that this woman is in this prison. The panic button was pressed for a reason by the other officer who may be afraid to come forward himself at this point. And we can't allow this. We can't allow it on our streets. We can't allow it in our prisons. Justice for Angela Jackson.
Yes. Just one last thing, and then if anyone else wants to speak, they'd be welcome.
Ready?
Well, you want to be on the other side too, so you can see Phil
Okay,
speaking?
so easy, just as you start, if you wouldn't mind, your first and last name and how to say it and how to spell it, and then your title, please.
My name is Philip Holmes. I'm with Incarcerated, Minnesota, or IWOC. That's Philip, P-H-I-L-I-P, Holmes, H-O-L-M-E-S.
And why are we here today?
We're here on behalf of a young lady who was assaulted in Shakopee Prison 2 months ago, and she's only the tip of the iceberg, I want to point out. The Department of Corrections has systematically shut down this investigation. There's no transparency. She is a victim in this crime, and yet she has yet to be interviewed. She's a primary and a victim, and they supposedly had an investigation, and I've never heard of an investigation where the primary hasn't even been interviewed. What I'd like to do momentarily is play her testimony. keep in mind that, yes, she's serving a sentence, but she didn't sign up for sexual assault. That's not part of the sentence. I dare to tell you today that the Department of Corrections has more secrets than the American mob. We have a situation where they can cover up things under the color of law and make it all right. And we're here today to try to change that narrative. And I appreciate everybody for coming out. David? Yeah. Hold that for me. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out. My name is David Banky, D-A-V-I-D. Last name Banky, B like boy, O-E-H-N-K-E. I'm gonna give a brief statement. We're gonna have a couple more people from other organizations show solidarity with Angela, and then we're gonna go talk to the DOC if they let us. So my name is David Banky. I'm an organizer with the Incarcerated Workers Organizing Committee, a union of current and former prisoners and loved ones working across the law to end daily abuse in prison and mass incarceration in Minnesota. As a longtime social studies teacher at an alternative high school in North Minneapolis, I've learned that everyone has the potential to be a powerful light in the world. If we listen with care, we can learn what each of us needs to be that light and how we bring that light out in each other. You should know then that it hurts me to get calls and emails every day from Shakopee Prison, because people there are not being respected and lifted up, but ignored, mistreated, ground down, and sexually abused. When my friend Angela called me and told me that she'd been sexually assaulted in handcuffs in solitary confinement on April 13th, that she'd reported it on April 15th to the facility and the police, and still nothing had happened, it hurt me, and it should hurt all of us. And it hurts me to know that this is not the first round of sexual victimization she has experienced, and she was then re-victimized by a prison system that keeps creating more victims. When someone physically abuses people in their care, whether they are children in our schools or in our homes, or vulnerable adults in prison, they have crossed the line. If you don't draw a line in the sand and get them out, you are saying their abuse is okay and continue. And when a guard sexually assaults a woman in solitary confinement in handcuffs, it is past time for them to go. Whoever else he might be as a person, the guard fired himself as of April 13th when he crossed that line. Christopher Wendover fired himself. Yet it is now June 23rd, and Warden Kathy Halverson and Director of Facilities Michelle Smith, the Commissioner of Corrections Paul Schnell, and Governor Tim Walz, they have yet to fire this guard. And if they don't, who is to blame, the guard or the guardians? And there are decades of this type of sexual violence and abusive behavior in Shakopee Prison. I have a partial history from incarcerated people right here. If anyone wants a copy of this. This is decades of abuse and sexual assault and rape in Shakopee Prison. And that had a big uptick ever since 1992 when they brought in male guards. It used to be an all-female facility. And I can promise you that there is more sexual abuse and harassment and mistreatment going on right now as we speak. Guards need to be fired, and union contracts need not to support people who use physical and sexual abuse at work. And despite reporting to the facility and the police, Angela has gotten no support, except from people who can't come in and support her, family and outside advocates like myself. We need a new system of support and accountability. We need a new system of how we treat women and all people who are struggling. I recently learned about something tragic and important called the sexual assault to prison pipeline. The sexual assault to prison pipeline, that sexual violence is a key driving factor for how most women end up in prison. Is this true in Minnesota? A recent study where people were allowed to go in and talk to Native women in Shakopee, it was found that nearly 100% of Indigenous women incarcerated in Minnesota underwent sexual or domestic violence that contributed to their incarceration. And one expects that numbers are almost as high for all women there. Yet are people allowed to come in and hug our Black and Indigenous sister when she was sexually assaulted? Are Native and Black organizations allowed to come in? Is the guard even fired? No, none of these things. We need a new system of support and accountability, and we need to stop the re-victimization of victims. A key part of the sexual assault to prison pipeline is trauma and the lack of support for survivors and sexual violence and healing long before they show up in prison. Yet how does Shakopee Prison take into account the long history of sexual trauma for most people in their care? How? By having guards do regular strip searches, sexual assaults via strip search on a daily basis, even though taxpayers have already fought for and paid for an airport-style body scanner to prevent the use of strip searches in Shakopee Prison. How is this not institutional abuse, institutional sexual violence, if you have a paid means via airport body scanner to prevent daily strip searches and you refuse to use it for years? Shame on Warden Halverson, shame on Michelle Smith, Paul Schnell, and Governor Walz. Surviving sexual violence also means mental health. Yet what does Shakopee Prison and the whole Minnesota prison system do for mental health? They throw people in solitary confinement, which makes them worse. Or they place them in double cells and tell people to deal with it. Or they give them the most cheap and outdated drugs. Or if they're suicidal, they put them in wet cells naked and wait until they're, too humiliated not to be suicidal anymore? The commissioner needs to use his power to release those with grave mental illness, and the community needs to be brought in to change how we respond to mental health in our facilities. This is unacceptable to continue to abuse survivors of sexual violence and to continue to abuse people who are struggling with mental health in our prisons. Finally, incarceration means vulnerable adults. Everyone in prison, by legal definition, is a vulnerable adult. Yet Shakopee has a gang of male guards, some of whom have been fired and rehired for sexual misconduct and violence. Shakopee Prison even has positions set aside for such people to have less contact with the vulnerable adults in their care. Why do we have a system where we have special jobs for people who can't do their job and who are dangerous to people that they're supposed to be caring for? How can we know these facts and believe that Shakopee Prison or any prison is a step towards rehabilitation? How are these the best solution that our systems can come up with? Where is the warden, the governor, the commissioner? And we need their actions, not their mouths. We've all heard pretty words from these professional talkers. What we need for them to do is to take action today. Specifically, release the video and fire the guard today. Fire Christopher Wendover today. 2, start using the taxpayer-funded airport-style body scanner to prevent daily sexual assault via strip search in Shakopee Prison starting immediately. And 3, partner with community to create an ongoing independent investigation starting today with full access to our prisons to name and stop abuse and to create solutions that don't create more abuse. Thank you so much. I now want to call up Jaylani Hussein from Care Minnesota.
Jaylani Hussein, Executive Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, Care Minnesota. JAYLANIHUSSEIN. I'm here today to demand justice for Angela and the countless lives that are inside the prison system today here in the state of Minnesota who have also suffered from sexual assault. I think the murder of George Floyd profoundly engaged our society to recognize injustice. And perhaps some of the most gravest injustice actually happens inside the prison systems in this country. To be assaulted while being in handcuffed, while being incarcerated in the way she was, and then for complete disregard of actually when she is brave enough to bring forth these allegations, that she's not met with the immediate response that anyone else, any of us, would expect. Sexual assault victims have a harder time raising their voice against those who committed against them, especially when those people are the people who are in direct responsibility of holding them in those or have power above them. The fact that this officer and the rest of the team have not been put on administrative leave immediately and subsequent to investigation to be fired immediately is an indication that we have a system that is corrupt and a system that does not value human beings regardless of where they are. As you just heard, prisoners are a vulnerable population. And in most cases, most of people do not believe their stories. And how dark is it for someone to be assaulted and then not to be believed, and the assaulter to be still in place of power. So we are asking for an immediate action for Angela, and we're asking for an immediate investigation into this matter and everyone who's been involved who did not do something. I've had the privilege of walking with Delshia Perry, who her son was killed in prison. And I'm telling you right now, as she spoke to many elected officials about the death of her son, nobody did anything. It took CARE 11 to actually do a deep dive investigation, and because of that reporting, things started to change. And that is what we're asking for the local media, to actually go into these prisons, to actually interview Angela, to interview many of the people who are facing a great deal of harm being brought to them by the system that is there to protect them in a peaceful manner. I am saddened to learn that we have to hold news conferences for sexual assaults. This is absolutely does not make any sense. And I'm really deepened to know that in an era where we are in the Me Too movement, where we finally, for the first time, this country has a mirror to see how ugly it is, how women are treated in this country, and how women are specifically treated now in prison. Every single Minnesotan should be upset. And we're asking for the governor and Paul Chanel and others to act immediately, to investigate, to fire the officers involved, and to bring an immediate, swift action to make sure that allegations of sexual assault in the state of Minnesota, whether it happens inside of a prison or outside of prison, are taken with immediate action. Without that, we are failing women, we are failing mothers, and most importantly, we are not holding the rule of law for people in this country, specifically police officers, as well as those who are working inside prisons. They are not above the law, and they should be held to the same standard as everybody else. If that sexual assault happened in Minneapolis or in the public, there would be an immediate action, there would be an immediate charges, and most importantly, there'd be an immediate separation between the assaulter and the victim. Unfortunately, in this situation, none of that happened, so we're saddened to learn that. So that's why we're asking for immediate action for Angela, justice for Angela.
And she said just to call you guys if anything happened. And someone had let the folks in not knowing what was going on, and so
Hello,
we had to
everyone.
tell them that the building is
My name
closed
is
today.
Marina.
So
Which it really wasn't. You had to tell us that because we showed up.
no, we actually announced the building would be closed. So
You know we don't believe that,
My
right?
first name
You know we
is
don't.
Marina.
I have
M-A-R.
it's a private building and we closed it.
Oh, I thought it was a public space.
No, it's a
Isn't-
private building.
Oh.
It's a private building.
Who's renting it?
So we are allowing the protest to occur, and we encourage dialogue.
You know that
It's
don't make
not-
no
it's
sense,
not
right?
allowed
Because
inside
that's
the
a
building itself.
that's a public
It's-
lobby.
It is not a public lobby. I'm sorry. it's
That's
a
like a
private
post
space.
office that rents a spot. It's still a post office.
It's not a
Whether
post
they,
office.
I'm telling you, when a post office rents a spot in the mall, it's still a post office, regardless of who owns the building. We can still film in there. That's
You
what
could
I'm trying to
film
tell
if
you.
it was open. It's just not open today.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. As you close it because of what we're doing here today, you close it because you don't want transparency.
Tenants in the building. This
And
is
you're
a
shutting it
place
down for everybody or
It's a
just
place
for
for
us?
collaboration. It's a place for comedy.
If you're going to raise your voice, can we maybe go down a little further? I know
Yeah,
there's
we're
stuff
gonna
out-
actually head into the building if you don't mind.
Okay.
We're still having a press conference on
Today
something
we are
important.
here in
Thank you.
solidarity
There's
to
also a
ask for
policy.
justice for Angela, and that the police officers are fired and also held accountable for their behaviors. I want to let Angela and her family know that I'm sorry that your family has to go through another trauma. And so
police, all these police, tax dollars are being spent well. You know what I'm saying? You feel me?
Internationally, it is illegal. Nationally, it is illegal. And in the state of Minnesota, it is illegal. Today, all we ask is for the bare minimum. For laws that are broken to be addressed, and for the people who broke those laws to be held accountable.
Metro State is closed. It is closed. There's actually signs on that side for Metro State students.
I didn't see any signs.
Okay.
They're able to use all the doors?
All the building is closed.
But when I'm telling you there was no signs
Miss
here,
Keisha.
we're able to use all the doors.
Do you want to speak? If you want to speak, you definitely can. Oh, do you come to speak?
To sign our petition, to follow social media, to contact the DOC. It's unacceptable for a government agency to uphold these behaviors. There's a systemic history of these abuses, not just in the state of Minnesota, but around the country. And it continues to happen because government agencies
Miss Keisha, you're
All these police, I feel safe.
So I thank you for your time. I'm extremely distraught that we have to stand up here today and advocate for this kind of abuse to stop. Because it's fundamentally wrong and it's something we shouldn't have to be even thinking about anymore, let alone people are actively experiencing. Once again, I'm with the Center for Victims of Torture. If you're interested in learning about the work that we do or you missed any of those ways you can be involved and you want to contact us, you can find our website at cvt.org. Thank you.
Who's you? My name is Mike Forshaw, FOR CIA. I'm chairman of the American Indian Movement, Twin Cities, and we are here for justice for Angela. And it appears we're the only ones here for justice. The cop or the guard is being backed up, and there's no transparency. And everybody above him who this was brought to, who is turning their back, they are complicit. So if this has gotten up to the lieutenant governor and the governor, and they choose to do nothing about it, they're complicit as well. And those men should be taken out of that prison immediately. Every single one of those men. When we had a homeless encampment, we demanded that only women run the camp. And men are there only for support, not to go in. And that's what these prisons should do. And if he's molesting these women in prison, I guarantee you he's doing it outside of prison.
Right.
Because there's a lot of these nasty guys in here who go into law enforcement specifically because they can get away with it. And I'm serious when I say most of our missing and murdered Indian women, I'm afraid if you look at law enforcement, they're responsible for a lot of that. And they might be out looking, but they know right where the body is, but they're not going to take you there. Because of the fact that they can't get a woman to be intimate with them. Because of how they take care of their body, because of their mentality, because of their personality, whatever it is, they just can't get companionship. And so they go out and they attack. And our people are simple. Our people are easy prey because nobody's going to pay attention to them. And that's what's happening. It's happening in the prisons, there's molestations. And look how upset people got when we found out this was happening to the children in the churches. But yet this just goes undone because, well, she's a criminal anyway. She's in prison anyway. What does it matter if she was sexually assaulted too? What does that matter? So yeah, there's things that have to be done. And I swear most of these people don't even need to be in prison. Restorative justice, transformative justice, other things have to be used. So yeah, we need action, we need immediate action. Those cops, every one of those guards who are men have to be replaced. That's number one. Thank you.
everything, but what you're not doing, you're not following my directions. That is for you to leave if you don't work.
Are you saying that the media and the public is not allowed to meet with the Department of Corrections?
I'm saying at this point in time, that is a correct statement.
So you were saying that the police are physically stopping the media and the
No,
public?
what I need you to do is step
with
out.
Department
The
of
door, this
Corrections?
building's locked, right? It's gonna be locked when that door shuts, and that's what needs to happen.
This is the Department of Corrections central office.
What I'm explaining to you is,
So
it's
are
already
you
been
saying
explained.
that the media
I just
and
said
the
it to you.
public
You
is
are not
not
allowed, this building is
allowed
closed.
to meet
This building is
with the
closed.
public?
the same thing over and over again.
We can't meet with the Department of
board of
Corrections.
the state.
Not right here, not today.
This is a public government
Okay,
building.
sir, I'm
Doesn't
asking you
matter.
again to please move.
This is a public
I'm begging you to
government
please
building.
move out of the way of the doorway.
We're trying to just get an
We're
understanding.
just trying to get an
But here's the deal,
Trying to get an
here's the deal, I've already explained
We're
it.
just trying
This
to get
building
an
is closed.
understanding about a
This
sexual
building, you're talking over me now.
crime
You're talking over me now.
Because they're not making any sense.
This building is
They're not
closed.
making any
We're
sense
trying to
though.
Okay, what part of this building is closed does not make sense?
It's a public
You're
government
made of
building.
land?
Okay,
Yeah,
they're
you
closing
can't-
it, it's closed.
They-
It's a
Sir, I
government
need you to
building.
slide out of the way, please.
This is a government
Sir, I don't want, I
building.
just want you to please get out of the way.
I just want to please talk to the
But you
commissioner
can have this,
who's
you
in
can have
the
this, you
building.
can have this discussion all day long once this door is closed.
Well, how do we talk to the people
How do we talk
inside?
to people inside if it's
Here's
locked?
the
This
deal.
is a
We're paying
government
them.
building.
We're paying
Again,
them.
This is a
They're not understanding.
For
We
healthy
can't say the same
conversation.
This building?
There was no transparency.
Why are they closing?
Why are they
Because of us.
closing?
Yeah.
Because of the
building is
Because of
closed.
us. That doesn't answer the
Oh, first
question
of all,
though.
you're asking a person, I am a police officer.
We were told it was
Speak
because
for
of
yourself.
You're asking me
you're
to make sure
doing
that this place is secure.
But you're doing
That's
it
my
was because
job.
of us.
Can we speak
You're
to
doing their
someone in
bidding.
there?
I'm not doing their bidding.
You are.
Here's the deal, they're asking because this is
You're
this-
asking
do
because
you-
they
do
say
you
they're
think I
asking.
am doing their, they're asking.
So if I call and say, can you
So
get
we're
us in the
asking
building,
you a
you do our
question.
bidding?
What's the
We
threat
have the
that
right to
caused
be
them
here.
to close?
What's the threat that
I don't
caused them to
know.
close the
A press
building?
conference about a woman who was
The press
sexually
conference is out
assaulted?
here.
Oh
This
my
building-
God.
No, we
they're
were
okay
in
with
there.
that.
We were in there.
They're okay with that.
We were in there.
We
they
were
kicked
in
us
there.
out.
Right, they
He's
don't
not
want you in
listening.
there.
And we want to speak
And that was the
to the
reason.
department. No, we want to
The
speak to the
building is-
central office staff, which is
And
there.
who's making that
This is
demand?
the-
We
the
need to
building-
know who's making that demand.
The
Who's
building
in charge?
management does not want it open.
Can you
They say
please-
it's closed.
Can we
you
get
please-
the
I am
name
not
of
going
that
to do
person?
Can you
more than what I
bring-
need to do, and that's close this door.
Then you
But
bring
you work for us too,
whoever
don't
is-
you?
Yeah.
Right,
No,
this
you
is not
don't.
about you.
Do
This
we
is
have
not
to
about
wait
you.
for
It's
them?
about
We
this
have to
building
wait.
is
See,
not
you
being closed.
misunderstood me. You deliberately
It's
misunderstood
totally
me.
about us. We're the
He just-
community.
But he doesn't have
Don't
to.
matter.
That's what it
Spit at me,
is.
please. If you could just give me a little space.
Yeah, I spit when I talk.
The
Okay,
Supreme
so-
Court ruled
That's an
higher
assault.
cops but low intelligence.
Can we please
Very low
No,
intelligence.
one side.
ask? Can you have someone from the
I'm not-
Department of Corrections come
Do
to
you know
to
what's
us?
going
on? Explain to me.
Because they are closing
What
the
was
building.
explained to
You
you? Maybe
got
we
his
don't
orders,
have your
officer.
understanding.
You know what's going on here.
She's following them.
Can we
Officer, do
understand
you know
what
what's
was
going on
explained
here?
to you?
Do you realize what's at stake here?
Do you realize
That he's.
No,
that
could
I
you
have-
answer
I
that
have-
question?
Yes, I do understand what's going on.
Okay.
Okay, and I understand your press conference. And I understand that it's very important
And
that you
do-
want to get the word out and that you want
No,
to
no,
have.
we want to get in there. That's
We
what
want to
we
talk to the Department of Corrections about
That's
the
what
people
we're saying.
They
that
invited us
It's not going to
here.
happen today.
in
They
the
invited us
in
here.
the vulnerable
Ever-
adults
they did
in
not.
their care.
Oh, they did.
They did not. I just talked to the person from the Department of Corrections and she said
Did you talk
that
to
they don't want
Paul
anything,
Snell?
that they're closed, they don't want anything to do with it. This building
Who
should
is
be
the
shut down.
person from the Department of Corrections?
I did not get her name.
Okay.
You need to get her name.
No, I don't need to get
What's
her
going on,
name.
bro? How you
How
doing?
can we-
How can we
how do
Because I
we-
saw her ID.
And then in the meantime, this mother cannot speak.
Let's
In the
go.
meantime, this mother's not able to speak right here. Can she please speak and give her voice, please?
I would love to have let her
Thank
speak.
you
If
very
everybody
much.
would just clear out
Thank you
this
very
building
much.
here
Go ahead,
and
ma'am.
let me get the store closed. I would love to have her speak.
Well,
But
maybe you
don't
can
wanna
hear
talk
her.
and you wanna
Maybe we
overshadow
keep
her,
it open
which I
and you
think
can
is a
hear
shame,
her.
sir.
Maybe you can hear her, officer. How about that?
How about the store needs to be closed? I will stand out here. I will
That
stand out
might
here.
be-
And
that's
I will,
up to- that's
my
not up to
officers
me.
will all stand out here. and listen.
Come listen.
That would be
Okay?
great.
Come listen.
That would be
Come
great.
listen.
I think.
I will, but you need to move.
No, he gonna shut the
I'm
door.
telling you
He's a
this, I'm
fox.
begging you, I'm asking you, please.
He gonna
You're
shut the
not
door.
obeying a lawful order.
It's okay, Dave.
You're not obeying a lawful order. And I'm asking you,
I'm talking.
Nah, he's using police talk.
I don't listen to you.
Yeah, that's what he's using his police talk. Yeah. No, he's saying he's using his he's doing his third job.
Building manager.
So how do we- okay,
I understand
Yeah, but no, it doesn't matter if not. He just made it out of his voice. He becomes the state. Look at the white lady.
And you could trust me, I understand that. I've been doing this for 30 years. I understand the evils of people.
Okay.
All right, I do. I've seen it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of
She's gonna say, and Paul Snell, he's such a.
But the problem, here's the deal. All right, if you ever go to her testimony,
Do you sign up to my site? My
and we'll all come together. We'll all come together with our cameras. But hold on. Cameras are wonderful. Everybody has the right to speak. But
There's a phone number out there. There's a phone number out there.
Right here.
The building management wants this closed, all right? So, and they have every right to do. But hold on, here's the deal. We're done.
Under direction of the DOC, you can apply whatever you want. Because we haven't had any direct questions with them, so we want to see that.
You're not even the one that's running this, right? You're just the one that's being the agitator.
Let's just see if he picks up.
You're being the agitator right now.
No, he's not trying to agitate.
More than that. More than that. There's one another one just pulled up. What are you talking about?
You keep saying that.
We won't be safe. We won't be safe to happen and to be about we won't be safe from the DOC. It's true.
You're working for the DOC, so she's working for the DOC.
No, she's not. She don't work for the DOC.
You just said you're part of the reason why.
We want this dialogue to happen, and that's part of the reason why we closed the building,
So bring them
so
out.
we can be safe.
Bring them
for
out.
everyone.
Well, bring them out. Bring them out so we can talk.
I'm happy to come out.
The DOC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ms.
You're the DOC?
Should I move? Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Well,
Thank
then,
you.
what
Thank
don't you
you.
get?
Thank you so much.
Okay.
We don't want to talk to you.
Property manager.
We're not here to talk to you.
That's his out. He didn't tell us. She told us.
No, you don't. You don't appreciate us. You're lying.
This
I
is
am a
white
woman.
woman in America.
And I have been affected
I believe
by
it.
sexual assault.
Then please act differently.
Okay, I think this is an important dialogue. No, I think this is an important dialogue. I think we need to have this dialogue. I am glad you are here.
Let's go.
But let's have this dialogue peacefully and safely.
Can everybody who's not filming come behind Ms. Keisha here?
Thank you.
We'll get that guy away so we're not in the back row.
Can we all support Ms. Keisha here?
You drop your headphones, bro.
That's what I mean.
Here.
Can we get closer so we can all fit in the thing? So we all right behind you.
Sorry about that. My name is Taylor. I am a parent of an incarcerated woman at Shakopee Prison. This is not new. The sexual assault is not new to me. It has happened years ago, in which they are aware. This particular officer who did it actually ended up was bringing drugs into the prison. Her roommate was the wife, the prison wife, and they were distributing. And he was terminated. From my understanding, he's not serving prison time. He is just mental health. They chose it as to be a mental health issue. Not only are they dealing with this sexual abuse, these are vulnerable women. Even if they disagree, the guards have been retaliating against them. There's a lot of racism going on in the women's prison, at Shakopee Prison, against the African American women. The guards are tolerating it, and they're choosing what side to pick. My daughter right now is currently in segregation. The reason being is because she had already had another issue with the woman calling her a silver bag, and one officer didn't want to put her in segregation because of that, because they were compliant with it. So anyway, she ended up, there was an altercation. She's in segregation without her having a job. She's not able to be out in the open, so she only gets like an hour a day to come out. And these particular times, they would set it up as she would come out at one particular time, and she would only have like an hour to use the phone, take a shower. So she only has 15 minutes. So, but what they would do, it was a group of them that would always use the phone, and then they would pass it on to their friends. So therefore, she wouldn't be able to use the phone. So that causes another altercation. It seems like to me like they were actually setting her up. But at the end of the day, she's on her way out. But you have to think about the other women that are in there that is indulging in this kind of activity. And it's not fair, and something needs to happen. And yes, you can complain, but we need someone to step in and actually advocate for these African American women, because there's no African American programs out there for them. Jasmine has done a lot of programs for them, but it seems like they don't like when you're educated and you're smart, you're providing a service for the African American women. So I say to you that they should not have to deal with racism
deal with being sexually assaulted in or outside of a prison. So any help that you could give for support, we would appreciate it. I know I would appreciate it. And again, I say to you, this is not only for my child, which is a girl woman, but it's not only for my daughter, but it's for the other women that is in that prison as well.
I wonder if he's
So
in the
anything you
building.
could do, the support, we would surely appreciate it because at this point they have no one. They have no one. Again, thank you for asking me to come and speak. I appreciate it. Again, any help is appreciated. And thanks for listening.
I missed your first and last name and how to spell it.
It's Keisha Taylor. Last name is Taylor.
First name
Keisha.
Keisha. Keisha, and your daughter is currently
Jasmine Jones. Yes.
is inside.
She's in Shakopee prison right now.
In solitary confinement.
Yes.
And
So
that
she gets out. Well, with her being in solitary confinement, she gets out once a week. So I'll get like 10, 15 minutes with her, and then she has, and that's it.
But your fear and concern is that
They are retaliating against her. Every chance she gets, if you see her record, it's like she has done so many wonderful things,
but I mean
positive things.
because the what's the woman that we're talking about? Angela. She was assaulted in solitary.
Right, they'll retaliate. They will.
You retaliate for
Against her
because
she spoke out.
she spoke out against
The guard. So they will. They will. Anytime you speak out against anything against those guards, let's keep this clear, perfectly clear. All the guards are not bad guards. I've met some nice, pleasant guards. They're not all bad, but you do get those bad ones, and they're aware of it. But also you have to think about the union is protecting them as well.
Are there any questions?
Has anybody petitioned, or is there a reason why the video hasn't been released? I've heard there's video of the incident of Angela being assaulted.
And that's a $64,000
Is
question.
there video?
Yeah.
There is a video, which is yet to be released. See, these investigations don't take years long to pan out. It's because they want to develop a story. They want to, if transparency is what we need, release the video. So that should tell us what we need to know. Why are you holding on to a video that's over 2 months old? This incident occurred 2 months ago. It don't take that long to investigate, or you must have a poor handle on investigation if it takes that long. And once again, I need to stress that the young lady who was assaulted has yet to be interviewed. And yes, there is a body cam, and so that's what we're fighting to get right now, for transparency's sake.
Just to be clear, it's a video, not a body cam.
I want to add something. It's enough that Native women have suffered, I would say, the greatest in this country. Not only from the genocide, but also even now the murdered, missing, and now sexually assaulted. And I'm deeply troubled by the hypocrisy in our state leaders who talk about protecting women's bodies from government action, yet are unable to protect women from sexual assault by people they actually supervise. Governor Walsh, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, this is a moment for them to stand up and actually to show us that they care about protecting women regardless of where they are, regardless of who they are. The fact that it's a Native woman, we understand that sadly in this country, Native women have been put on the back burner for far too long. But I will say that we are in a different world, in a different mindset. After the murder of George Floyd, at least there has been a raise of consciousness across this country and here in Minnesota. But we will not give up for Angela. We will fight for her. And what you saw here today was exactly what happens in this country when black and brown people stand up for something. White women call the police, and we had 9 police officers who showed up here saying that she lied. According to the police officer said that 15 people were inside and were not leaving. Where's the 15 people? All the camera people were here. Where was those 15 people inside? We didn't even have 15 people, first of all. And where were we inside? A white woman lied, the police was called, and our lives were threatened while we were standing for a woman who was sexually assaulted. That is America. That is Minnesota.
Tell the truth.
Yep.
And it has to stop.
Is Angela Native American?
She's Native American and black.
I just want to ask a quick question. I know by doing this investigation, isn't there some type of law that prohibits male officers from transporting female women on that facility?
Yeah, my understanding from Angela, who's much more of a policy expert than I am, is that yes, there's a policy against 2 male officers transferring a woman, and that they violated that policy that day of April 13th. And all the officers involved in letting that violation happen need to be held accountable too. Yep.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Yes. Is there any more information that we're going to need to follow up through this case, and how could we follow this case and understand what's going on and whatever?
I would say follow IWOC's page. They do a lot of the work around what's going on in the prisons and the mistreatment of people inside of the prisons. So that's capital IWOC, IWOC. Follow that page on Facebook, because a lot of the events that they have, also I work with them as a partner, but they mainly do the work for the prisons. But it's Family Supporting Families Against Police Violence page. Is there any way else that people can?
Yeah, I would just say, so the Facebook page directly is facebook.com/TCIWOC. So T as in Twin Cities, IWOC. IWOC is the Incarcerated Workers Organizing Committee. We are an organization of people in prison and people outside of prison working across the wall to end abuse in the prison system and to end mass incarceration in Minnesota. So that would be the place to follow. Yeah, anyone else have anything they want to share? Or other questions?
This tinyurl.com/justice for Angela.
Yes, with the letter 4.
Number 4.
Yes. Number 4. Yes.
Has anyone been able to talk to Schnell about why he locked the building today?
So that's a great thing. So actually, there was a press conference earlier today, and police forcibly made us leave the building after we come into the lobby, and they told us basically the Department of Corrections had told them that we were not allowed in the building, which is pretty crazy if you consider that this is a government building. They are government officials. They are our public servants. They serve us, supposedly. But no, we have not yet heard. We were on NPR today, and the commissioner did speak on that, but he did not speak on the issue with why police were told to keep us out of the building, or why the building was locked, and all the tenants were unable to access the building today. So.
What about Curtis Shankley? What's his?
So we haven't heard from him. I would also say that there was a meeting. There's a monthly meeting called the Task Force on Incarcerated Women and Girls, which is a public meeting, a legislatively mandated public meeting. Paul Schnell and Curtis Shanklin were both on that meeting. This issue had been brought to them via email, and it was brought up at the meeting, and they refused to comment on the case and said it was inappropriate to make comments about the circumstances in that meeting. So they've been long aware of it, and certainly, obviously, it was reported in April 15th.
Right.
To further answer your question, we were meeting with Paul Schnell before COVID. We used to come, and I guess we were welcome at that point in time. So after that, we would come, as we are now, to protest, and the doors are always locked. Now, he said in his NPR interview this afternoon, he was angry that we didn't reach out to him. So that's a contradictory statement when he blocks the doors to keep us. We asked to speak to him when we got here. So we have to keep in mind what this man says and what he talks about. He's not a truthful person, and he's very accommodating when you meet him in person, very personable guy. He's all of that, but he's not truthful. And so we have to deal accordingly with people that say things that are so misleading.
The thing I wanted to go back to that the gentleman we just talked about. What's his name? Shankley.
Shanklin.
Shanklin.
Like a knife.
Now he's a brother. And why is he not participating in this conversation when he was drawn up as progressive and now he's turning his back? Is there anything we can do to pressure him to come out and talk about it?
Well, we have been in touch with the deputy in the last couple of weeks, and we do have a meeting that's planned, and we're just going to see how that turns out.
Okay.
And I just wanted to also add that Angela, I was told she is a black and native woman. So of course, as a black woman, I can identify with that. And then we know that black people as well as native people have gone through the most treacherous thing that human beings could ever go through in this country. So, but I did want to mention, I think that's a strong factor that this is a black and native woman that is going through this right now and having to see this officer every day. If there is no other statements to be made or any more questions, we can. Oh.
Just wanted to mention the letter.
Say your name too.
My name is Angela. I also work with IROC and I've been working on this issue. So just also wanted to mention that there are 2 demand letters that are going out, that are going around. There's one demand letter to the DOC and one demand letter to Scott County, which is where Shakopee is in, asking several demands, the many of which Tashira and David mentioned. So asking that the guard be fired, asking that they use body scanners, and asking that they put in place more protections so that these things don't happen to women in Shakopee again. And so we're currently in the process of sending that letter around to different organizations to sign onto, so that we can get as many people as possible on board and hopefully put more pressure on both Scott County as well as the DOC. So if there are any folks that you know of, or if you're a part of any organizations or book clubs or community groups or what have you, you can find those demand letters, and then if you could get your folks to sign on, that'll make it a lot more helpful.
All right. We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to fight
for our freedom.
We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to win.
We have a duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to win.
We have a duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
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 All power to the people.
All power to the people.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone being here today, and we stand for Angela Jackson. Thank you.
Man. Strong, powerful.
The anatomy of a cover-up. This is unacceptable. I'm sorry, it is. When I agreed to work with you on the work group, we talked about the importance of transparency and accountability. And here, what we are seeing is business as usual. And you know this, Amelia. You know this, Jacob. I don't know how you guys slept that night. I couldn't sleep at night. Tears from a mother's perspective, thinking about what happened. I saw the picture of Amir. He looks like a boy. My son is 17 years old. He has slept on his friends' couches for sleepovers. So we cannot sit here and whitewash this and pretend that it's okay. You knew that I was not going to stand for police violence and a push for accountability, yet you asked me to be a part of the work group. And I knew what I thought I was signed up for. This isn't what I signed up for. I understand if you're not comfortable having me continue to co-chair, that's your prerogative. I signed up to help bring recommendations because we're tired of being killed. We're tired of the cover-ups. We're tired of the excuses. And to hide behind the St. Paul Police Department The deadliest police force in the state of Minnesota is unacceptable. You all had no business agreeing to carry out a warrant, and now you're claiming that's part of their investigation. You don't know. Well, why the hell did you all sign up to do this in the first place? There was a homicide that happened at 1-something in the morning on Hennepin Avenue. Someone was killed, and then the person drove away in a black SUV. They're still at large in Minneapolis, potentially a threat to residents. But you all go do something for St. Paul police, and now you're trying to hide behind that decision. It's not acceptable. We are ready for change. When the people voted to re-elect you, Jacob, they not only showed that they wanted to see a new leader, right? Not saying you're not the person who got re-elected, you got re-elected. But what they were expecting is a new beginning. That's why they gave you more power and authority. So that is what we want to see as the residents of Minneapolis. We don't want to see cover-ups. We don't want to see whitewashing. People are asking very simple questions that have still not been answered. Amelia, you're saying you want to be the chief? Then act like it. Demonstrate integrity. Don't cover up for what those cops did. If they knew that the kid had a gun as he started waking up, say, drop your weapon. They didn't do that. One cop opened fire and took the life of a child who was trying to go back into his blanket. Any mom can see what happened there. So I can't tolerate the whitewashing. I'm sorry, y'all. We can't do this. I know you have your narrative. I know you have your script. And no, you guys didn't personally go shoot somebody. But you do have the opportunity to make it right. To talk about the fact that you changed the no-knock warrant policy. Where's the evidence of that? That wasn't present on what happened to Amir Locke. So if I'm going to be the co-chair of this group, I'm expecting strong leadership, I'm expecting integrity, and I'm expecting accountability. Yes. You guys aren't going to waste my goddamn time. And I don't care if you guys had your security trying to stop me. I can be used to come speak the truth about what needs to happen, but when it's time to call out these inconsistencies, these inaccuracies, the lack of information, I gotta sit in the back or even not even be invited. I'm not here for it. We fought too long, too hard. It's people in jail, including Cortez Rice, trying to get the court to show what's happening in the courtroom so people can see what's going on. People have put their lives on the line because we're ready for change. So we're expecting from this point forward for you guys to do something different. I'm not playing. We're not here for it. We're not here for it. I'm only committed to working on this work group if you all are committed to being honest and transparent and not covering up the bullshit. Thank you.
Why did you release pictures of his gun, but no pictures of a gun of the officer who killed him? Why have you not released that information? You know, this man did not shoot anyone. He did not discharge his weapon. Why did you release his gun? That was a disgusting vilification of this man. That is inexcusable. It is utterly disgusting that you would release a picture of his gun, even though he never fired his weapon. And you know he didn't fire his weapon because you had both seen the video. This is the kind of lack of transparency that Nakeema is exactly talking about.
Chad, you're wrong. What do you got to say about SAF Mo saying white MFers?
I don't give a fuck what anybody says because it's America and you should be able to do and say what the fuck you want. God bless America.
Detrimental.com. Detrimental.com. Detrimental.com.
This is SF Moya Prison Lloyd. This is SF Moya Prison Lloyd. This is SF Moya Prison.
You're in the motherfucking grill pit. You're in the